All right, Lance, we are joined today by Amy and Andrea of our ministry staff. And so, Amy, you've been on before, but you've never been on video. So how are you feeling about that? Have you done 2 episodes on audio with us?
I have. And this is a whole level of nervousness that I did not hit with the radio version of just audio.
But why? Like, it's just, at the end of the day, we're still just having a conversation. Just because there's cameras rolling doesn't mean that
it just adds a level of stress. I can't explain it.
Okay, well, I think you'll do just fine. Andrea, what about you?
I'm excited. It's intimidating, especially with the video, because we all know the camera adds 10 pounds, but I'm excited to be here.
It also adds, according to Neil and Chase, a lot of, how do we word this? We've talked about it several times. You have to overemphasize your excitement level. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job of that, but I don't feel like I'm doing it. So maybe I'm not as like grumpy as I seem. Or maybe I've just been doing the journey long enough that it's starting to just become natural.
People That's something that I'm wiggly because I've already started my swaying.
You just need to raise your voice an octave like this, and then you're super excited.
There you go. That's it.
Just raise it 1 octave.
We learned that with RBC3.
Yeah.
You're talking to the camera. You want to seem 10% more enthusiastic than you normally would, and it all evens out.
You feel like you're overacting, but it comes across great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels natural. So before we started recording, we were discussing podcasting habits. And Andrea, you found out that you were coming on the show less than 24 hours ago.
Like last night.
Yeah, last night after the family fellowship, we were all just standing around. All the work had been done, basically. And
speak for yourself.
Poor Lance.
Well, I'm sorry that the RFC is not my ministry area.
Okay.
So, let's put it this way. Most of the carpet towels had been put away. And so we were standing around and
we only had a couple of hundred left.
Yeah. The plan for today's episode, Chase is out at Disney World. And so the plan for today was to have Amy on, and it was going to be me, Lance, and Auburn. And as we're standing around talking about what we're going to talk about, Auburn says, I think you should just get somebody else. We're going out of town next week. And, I just got too much to do. Of course, Amy took it that Auburn didn't want to be on with her. And so
instant offense.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but Auburn's not here. And so Andrea was just right there. And
there
I said,
well, just conveniently standing there.
You want to come?
Doing nothing.
Yeah. Do you want to come on the journey tomorrow? And she graciously accepted. I don't know if anyone else would have done that on such short notice. But
you work in kids ministry, everything is fly by the seat of your pants.
That's true. But at the end of the day, I think people's nervousness for coming on is the fact that, well, what are we going to talk about? But
we always find something.
As we will prove today, we still don't know.
No clue.
So anyway, I started that off because we were talking about podcasting habits. You don't listen to any podcasts.
I don't. So podcasting, obviously wasn't around when I was a teenager or younger. And so it wasn't a habit I ever got into, but one of my really good friends, she listens to podcasts all the time, and she's like, sends them to me. And I'm like, yep, I'm totally going to do it. And I cannot just sit and listen. It's like books on Audible. I struggle with that because my mind trails. And so it's not something I've ever really sat and listened to. My oldest daughter, Rachel, loves podcasts. And so when we're in the car together, she'll put one on and force me to listen to it. And I enjoy it, but then I have to stop, back it up. I veered out. I'm like, I don't understand what was going on. So that's my struggle is ADHD and attention.
What does she listen to?
She likes murder mysteries. She loves a good
true crime.
Yes, true crime is big time. But she's a heavy reader too. And so she enjoys it.
All right, Amy.
What about me?
What are your podcasting habits?
Well, I'm a faithful listener of The Journey. You guys reeled me in on that. And then I also enjoy true crime. And then I follow more of stories, like biography stories. I like to hear stories of people's lives and things like that. So I've followed a few of those, and I really enjoy, oh my goodness, Josh Howerton out of Texas.
I love him.
I have gotten to where I watch, even if I don't watch the full thing, I'll watch the clips that they've pulled out of his, just good snippets to think about.
He preaches at the church that Matthew and I attended when we lived in Rockwall. And he was not the pastor then, but I told Matthew, I'm like, I would love to go back and go to one of his services.
Yeah.
How long were y'all at Lake Point?
We were at Lake Point. Oh goodness. We moved to Rockwall in 2005, and we were there till we came to Dothan, which was 2010. So 5 years.
Was Lake Point, because I remember when I first came on staff here as director of internet ministries, Matthew would always tell me, this is what Lake Point's doing. This is what Lake Point's doing. You need to go watch Lake Point.
They were very impressive.
So have they, like, what it is now, was it like that then, or has it kind of changed since Josh has been there?
So the pastor before was Steve Stroop, whom we loved, and we loved the executive pastor, Wes Hamilton. Both of them were excellent ministers. I would encourage anybody to go listen. I believe Wes Hamilton does a podcast as well.
Everybody and their brother has a podcast.
Right.
So.
But two excellent preachers. And so Lake Point was large, but it wasn't like the mega church that it is today. When we were there, they had 2 other satellite campuses, but now they have, multitudes of them, and it's a lot bigger. So
Cool. Do you think you could get Josh Howerton on the podcast?
I don't think he even knows who I am.
Well, you could say that you're a former Lake Point member.
I was there, 20 years ago.
All right. Well, I'm open to, you have notes.
Well, Chase had just mentioned to be ready to talk about as you go. So I just brought some notes about that, but I'm ready for, Lance said he had some good questions for us.
Yeah, well, I want to ask about as you go too, because I think it's a great curriculum and you wrote it. And I do want to get into that. But I also, because both of you, there's some similarities in the 3 of us. Andrea more recently, but we all had secular. And I know we always try to say there's no difference in the spiritual and the secular, but we all worked in the secular world. Then we got into ministry. And I just wonder for y'all what that transition was like, if anything. I know your job was ministry, certainly. I think you would look at your job as a ministry as well before, but specifically working in a church setting, what have been the differences since you've come on staff?
So for me, I worked in education for over 20 years, and 15 of those years was at Northside. And that school is very precious to me. I love it. But when God knocks at your heart and says, it's time to change and to do, because the job was highly stressful. And Matthew would always be like, we'll leave. And I'm like, no, my kids are there. My heart is there. This is where God wants me. And I'm like, I can't even fathom what I would do if I wasn't doing this. This is what I went to college for. This is what my degrees are in. And then when I heard that Miss Jessica was moving and leaving, I just had this little push in my heart that God was like, check it out. So I went to Matthew and I was like, hey, and I'm like, talk to me a little bit about kids ministry. I'm like, what does that really look like for the church? And he rattled a little bit, and then it just kind of opened up. So I prayed about it for a while, and I reached out to Brother Ray, and we talked about it and prayed about it for a couple months. It was a long process of me praying and thinking and talking and seeing through. But I told Matthew, I'm like, I think I really want to do this. I'm like, I love kids. And my last 4 years at Northside wasn't in the classroom. It was in administration. And you lose some of that connection and daily interaction with kids. And if I have time, I'm going to tell a sweet little thing with it. When I was really wrestling with do I really want to step away from education? Is that really what God wants me to do? I was driving home one day, and my kids are in the back seat, and we're heading home from school, and a car pulls up next to us at the red light. And this kid is just, waving, the windows down, half his body's hanging out. And Kate's like, Mom, I think that kid's trying to get your attention. So I look over, and it's a Northside kid, and his mom rolled down the window. She's like, I'm sorry. She's like, he was desperate to say hello to you as soon as he saw you. And God said, it's time. It's time to have that relationship again. And so God opened the door and blessed it. And when I first came, it was VBS week of 2025. And oh my heavens, that was not the week to come in for sure, because it was just a fountain of stuff and information. But once I kind of got into the groove, people would call me and what are you doing right now? And I'm like, well, right now I'm coloring a paper bag and preparing for us to talk about the armor of God. That was my day. It was crafting and creating and doing and preparing for these lessons. And it was just this relief of this blessing and this joy that I love my job and I love coming to work. And, we were gone for over a week on vacation, and people were like, oh, was it hard to come back? And I'm like, not at all. Not at all. It was just man, I'm ready to see my family, here at the church and see the kids and get right back into it. So definitely less stressful. It's definitely rewarding, and there's great joy there. But one of my favorite things outside of just being with the kids and pouring the gospel into them is the creativity that I get to use behind it.
That's great. That's a great answer. And we pick up new viewers, new listeners all the time. So I'm sure people could deduce you are the children's minister. That's probably worth noting for sure. So a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences as well. You can craft things in a bigger picture. You probably have more control over trying to make it yours, not as many moving parts, which probably helps simplify things. Not that it can't get crazy, but you can have a more direct impact, I think, of what you're saying on the kids.
So one of the things I did was when we got ready for the January RAD to begin, I was looking for what study do we want to do? What curriculum do I want to use? And I'm searching and looking and reading and doing, and I just really wasn't finding anything that I really wanted to do and liked. And God just spoke to my heart and said, write it. So I sat down and wrote a 9-week plan on the fruit of the Spirit to teach the kids, and came up with the activities and the curriculum. And we taught them how to journal. The kids had to journal how we read and study and talk and discuss and make notes and do a little drawing and stuff with it. And that was a wonderful thing. And so then as we get ready for summer, God was like, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do something that has to do with underwater. So we're doing underwater Bible adventures starting the 27th. And I wrote that whole curriculum too to get us through summer. And I thought, man, Lord, thank you, because this taps into my creative side and I have just loved it.
That's great. It's great. Amy, you've been in the saddle a little bit longer here at Ridgecrest to ministry to seniors and to women. Differences in what you did before and what you're doing now? Is it more stark than Andrea, or not quite as?
I joke that it's not a lot different because it still uses the gifting and the passion of teaching and connecting with people. So Brother Ray asked us, I guess it was last week in All Staff, about what would you tell a new believer? And my answer, I think one of the ones I said, was to always give my yes, even when it makes no sense to anyone else around you. And that speaks kind of directly into what God's done in my life. Because I've been in education for almost 20 years as well, but also in the midst of that, I served overseas doing that, and I served in a church doing that. So it's been in and out of the public sector and the ministry sector. And it was so funny because when I heard that they were looking for a preschool minister, I had put my name in the hat for that and sent my resume in and interviewed. And then when they called me afterwards and they're like, we have something to ask you, and it's completely out of left field. What do you think? And they literally said, what do you think about being the director of senior adult ministries? And I sat there. I was in my car. I just pulled up at Starbucks to go get me a coffee. And I just sat there and I was like, senior adults, that is so far out there. I was like, is that what you want for me, Lord? And the longer I sat, I said, okay, let me pray about it. But as soon as I sought the Lord, he was like, yes, this is where God has called you to pour into people. And at first I was like, this is going to be so different than my wheelhouse, because I've always worked with kids, birth to 18 years old. But the senior adults have such liveliness and such an eagerness to be seen, to be heard, to be ministered to. And they are just excited. I mean, I feel like I still get field trip opportunities because I'm taking them on trips. I get to do the teaching side of it in their classrooms on Sunday mornings. I get to rotate through there. I do some RAD classes with them through the year in the off season, especially. We're about to kick off one for the summer. So I get the best of all the worlds. And then with my women's ministry, just getting to love on women and building connections there. And then through Kingdom Women, really my true passion. I love to read, and I've always been a big writer. I do some editing on the side and everything. So that's always been a hobby passion of mine. And it's just really neat that God's allowing me to use that as well. I'm with Andrea. It's just such a breath of fresh air that God in his timing brought together not only an opportunity to serve him in the church, but to use different giftings that my other past experiences have lent some experience to and joy into what he's called us to.
That's good. Mr. Producer.
So what was it like when you asked Matthew about kids ministry, are you Well, were you asking husband Matthew or administrator Matthew?
Both. I mean, the pleasure of that is he gets to be both because he's administrator at home too. And so I went to him. I know. And yes. And so I was like, I don't know. And because years ago, like before Sarah Joy came and preschool opened, I was like, do you think I could do that? And he's like, I don't think you would like that. And so I just like dropped it. And he's probably right. I love babies, but first through fourth grade, through sixth grade, that's really my heart is like lies right there. And so I just put it to bed and never thought about it again. And so when I came to him this time and I was like, tell me, like, what does this look like? Like, what is it? Responsibilities? Do you think that's something I can do? He was like, yes. He goes, I think you'd be great at it. And so to have that support from my husband, but also someone who's on the inside of the church and sees the ministry and knows the expectation and what's wanted and needed was a huge confirmation for me. My sister and I are super close. And so she lives in Atlanta and she is the person I go to. I got to tell you this is going on. And I'm like, I need you to pray and I need counseling in this. And so she was highly encouraging too. And she knew how precious Northside was to me and how hard that would be to walk away from it. But I just sought godly counsel in all of it.
That's good.
But yes, Matthew was definitely a huge part of that. Very supportive.
I just still think I told you last night, the more I get to know you, the more I see how different you and Matthew are. And it's just fascinating to watch.
Opposites attract and we're good balance for each other.
They're opposites, but they both like spreadsheets.
We do. Well, I learned that from him. So I can't say I was a spreadsheet queen.
She's obsessive. She goes in and it's very intimidating. She's like, look, I have this. And it's like pages of spreadsheets. And I'm like, wow, that's really impressive. Her budget this year, when she showed her budget plan, I was like, mine's like a pretty piece of paper with it just has itemized lists, and hers is like a spreadsheet budgeted plan. And I'm like, okay, very different personalities going in there.
Taught from the best for sure.
He came up last night as we were all standing around because all of our work was done, as I've already said. Of course. He came up and I said, Andrea's going to be on the podcast tomorrow. Cool. She'll do great.
Y'all map up the kids' days like Rachel, Wednesday afternoon, this is you and cell C.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Hey, when we went to Alaska, we had a complete spreadsheet for the children every day. This is what you're making for dinner. This is where everyone needs to be at this time. And it was on the fridge, but I don't know if they could function without it.
That's funny.
I'm trying really hard to get more into spreadsheets as I have more on my mind to try to organize. I think it's the only way. So I might be coming to both of you for help.
I have one for my weekly meal plans for the family.
Surprise.
It helps me grocery shop.
First through fourth grade.
Yes.
I don't know if it applies at that age, but I did have a conversation with someone who had gotten into high school teaching. Was a complete career change for her. She was actually in the medical field and so she became a teacher and she was teaching 10th grade. And not long after she got into it, I said, well, how's it going? She said, I got to tell you. She said, kids think completely different in this generation than they did in my generation. And it has been a challenge trying to tap into how they think and unlocking their potential in the way that they think. Are kids just kids, or does that apply some to how young that is?
There's so many different facets every generation is different, but in reality, they're all the same. And I think the first time that really opened my eyes to it was when I saw this article, because I'm always trying to read and understand, Gen Alpha is where I'm at with these kids. And I read about things from Gen Z. Well, the kids in my own household I was Gen X, excuse me. Let me age myself. I was Gen X or am. My kids are Gen Z. And so trying to relate and understand that is one thing. But now you have this Gen A coming in and that are in this, kindergarten through fourth grade, what I minister to. And a big thing I kept seeing was like words and lingo and all these words that they're using that make zero sense to me. But then someone pointed out, well, when you were a teenager, you said this word and this word and this word. And it means the exact same thing. It's just a different word. And I thought, man, that's so true. They're really the same. Now, the explosion of technology on today's youth has changed them dramatically. They grow up faster. Their maturity hits a little earlier. And so, we have kids in first and second grade and kids used to have cell phones. And I'm like, man, I don't want you to have that out here in church. Like, put it in your purse, And so those things are different challenges from when my first year of teaching or my first year of working with kids. It was very different. But at the core of it, kids are kids.
Kids are kids. I don't know how to ask that question about seniors. I I have to remind myself, I'm AARP eligible.
That we are seniors.
Yeah, I'm not AARP, but I'm eligible. But it stands to reason that every generation of seniors will end up thinking a little bit differently than the generation before because they were shaped by their circumstances. Mm-hmm. Do you find that with working with seniors now, or are kids, seniors?
I feel like there is a little bit of a difference between, it's almost like in high school where you have your upperclassmen and your lowerclassmen. There's a little bit of a thought process that's different there. I would say my upperclassmen, senior adults, one thing I notice about them is their generation grew up with no technology, and they are so purposeful in the way that they check in on each other and take care of each other. Mm-hmm. Like that is something that they do, and it just comes naturally to them. They're going to call, they're going to write each other cards. They're going to, when they hear someone is not feeling well or something's not going on in their life where they're able to take care of something, they'll go and try to help the other one take care of it, whether that's providing a meal or driving them to a doctor's appointment or something. They're so good at checking in on each other. And then you have your younger seniors, and they're in your boat. They're eligible, but they don't want to be seniors. They're not ready to embrace the senior life. And but they're starting to hit retirement age, and they have some more freedom. So they are looking for some things to do and to plug in. And they have just this different mindset, but they also are that mix of cross generations. They grew up without the technology. So they're perfectly fine with picking up the phone and calling someone. Where it's funny with my women's ministry, with my younger girls, they're not going to answer a phone call, but they will text me all day long. Mm-hmm. And so with women's ministry, I find myself very text heavy. And then with my senior adult ministry, I find myself looking more for that one-to-one contact with a phone call or a face-to-face. So that changes the way the ministry kind of connects. But senior adults, they are no different than teaching a group of high school girls or guys. They still connect. They still make jokes. They have their own little lingo of what they think is funny.
Do they have their own drama?
They do. It's so cute. It's not like teenage drama, but it's just funny. You'll sit in a classroom, and one of my favorite classes is the encourager class. And they will tease each other. They will make jokes that are inside jokes, obviously, to them that they understand. And it's so fun because people are people. I don't care how old or how young they are. Just the way they connect might look a little different.
When your Gen Alpha grows up,
yeah,
it'll be, I'm going to have my AI agent get up with your AI agent.
Yeah, exactly right.
And then we'll work this out. That's what it'll be like in the future.
And the millennials will be all tattooed sitting in their rooms.
Absolutely.
So it's very different, but.
All right. Switching gears a little bit. I'm interested in the creativity side of potential conversation here. So we potentially have, Lance, for the first time, 4 writers at the table.
Oh, wow.
And so I feel like, not to disparage Auburn and Chase a little bit, but maybe we can talk about things like that. So first of all, I had no idea that you edited stuff on the side. I did. So can you explain, elaborate on that?
So I've edited anything from medical dissertations to theses to, I actually am working on a novel right now that I edit for a guy. I'm his longstanding agent for about, 5 years. So,
wow.
Right down the hall from that.
Right?
So I enjoy it. It's like it's cathartic to get to write, but I also enjoy jumping in on something that's already created and making it better. Yeah. I honestly probably like that even more than the creative part. I enjoy the creative part, but I love seeing what someone else has done and just partnering with them to make it better.
Can you explain the process of that? Because we have a former newspaper editor here. Mm-hmm. And so I imagine there's going to be differences in editing a manuscript of a novel versus editing the news. But I would like to hear you discuss it. Nobody listening might not care, but I'm interested.
So when you're doing articles and newspapers, dissertations or theses, it's very research heavy. And so I had to make sure that I kind of had some background knowledge before I went into the editing mode. And I was more technical there. With the novel process, it's the flow of the story. It's the dialogue. It's the not sounding canned. It's helping, because when you write, I don't know if you've ever tried to write dialogue, it's tricky. And so you kind of get into habits where you make your dialogue sound similar each time. And so as an editor, you try to help make it fresh and new and not sound so regimented of he said this, she said that, and then this happened, and then that happened, and he said, and she said.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to have a creative bent and you have to be able to go back. Like you might edit for a minute, and then as you get past it, you're like, oh, okay, wait, let me go back and I'll tweak it again and flow. So with a novel, it's a lot of back and forth because I don't like to read it and then edit. I read and edit as I go, and then I go back and do a second edit of myself. So it's usually a 2-time editing.
That seems very time intensive.
It can be. So it's according to the size of the novel, how long it takes.
How did you get into this?
So
This is like a completely random thing that I'm just.
It is interesting.
So I had a portfolio because I have done so many dissertations and things, and it was more professional grade. And then a friend of mine had reached out and said, someone is needing a book edited and I don't have time to dedicate to it. Would you be willing to give it a shot? And I said, sure, let me talk to him. And so he sent it to me, and it's young adult, like sci-fi fiction. And so it's not heavy novels to read. They're about 200 to 250 pages each. So to me, that's a light read and a fun project. So I gave it a shot, and he's kept me going. And because of that, I've gotten a few other novels here and there that I've had an opportunity to work on.
All right. Can I throw something out here?
Yes, please.
Okay. So 20 years ago, I wrote a series of children's books, and they are literally sitting in a binder in my closet at home.
It.
I also have a young adult novel that I have to go back and flesh out that I have written.
We want a finder's fee when this all gets going.
Because now I'm like, I don't know what to do. This stuff is, like you said, it's therapeutic.
Uh-huh.
I never really see it going anywhere. It's just something I enjoy doing. But
I'm
I'll
shook.
let you read them.
But I love to read. I love to read what other people write, what they think. Like, it just gives you an insight into someone's heart, honestly. Like, I enjoy the Substack drops when you guys post, and I don't always interact with it. Sorry, I'm not a big liker and like a commenter.
You're what the internet
lurker.
A lurker,
I'm
as
a
the
lurker.
internet community would call you.
I don't know if that's my generation or what. I just don't get super involved in commenting and liking on stuff. Like, I might pay attention, but you won't always know I'm there. So I guess that's kind of lurky.
I think that's really interesting because when I started taking journalism courses in college, that would have been 90, 91, 92.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was so regimented because it was such a print heavy medium at that point in time. You needed to get to the heart of the story as quick as possible because you might not have a print space to get any more than that. And
Fun fact, I interned at the Lakeland Ledger when I was there in the 90s.
Well, there you go.
Wow.
So, and you had to get to it. You wanted to get those 5 W's and the H, who, what, when, where, why, and how. You wanted to get that as high at the top as possible. Leave the fluff down at the bottom because it might get cut. And so everything was very stodgy in how we were taught to write. And then we had a professor come in toward the end of my time there, and he just flipped everything on its head. And he said, nobody wants to read that. He said, get creative, play with language. He said, I know you've been taught that you've got to adhere to all these rules. He said, play with language and find your voice. Because everybody's got a distinct voice when they talk, how they talk. So do you when you write. And that was really kind of groundbreaking for me. And it helped my writing as I went on in my career. But then when I became an editor, the first thing you want to do is edit out the voice. And it's tricky to be able to keep the nugget of what people want to say and how they say it but more succinctly. And you got to have a gift to be able to do that.
So I don't remember when it was, but it was very early on. We had a conversation about story and telling, and it's so long ago, I can't even communicate what it was, but do you remember what I'm talking about? We talked about communicating a message through story rather than a dissertation, and how Christians are not very good at that. So I would like the two of you to talk about that.
I think that's true.
And you can chime in too.
I think that's true when you think about the power of a night of testimony versus just another sermon. Because faith is when you are walking it. It's measured by your footsteps, and it's powerful to hear someone's story walking out their faith rather than just hearing a sermon about how to walk in faith. Both are important and both are necessary, but there's something that's so relatable and so needed for us as listeners to hear other people's stories. And it might not resonate the same with you as it does with me. And even though we might be both females sitting in the room hearing it, and I know you guys talk a lot about the male versus female, but still, Andrea and I might not hear that testimony and get the same message out of it. And I think that's the power of story, is that it connects in a different level than the intellectual lecture does.
You have to deal with that a lot, because how long do you think you have kids' attention?
So a study that I read said you get 1 minute for every year. So if I have a 6-year-old, I get 6 minutes.
Okay.
And so the curriculum we use, like in kids worship, because I will teach maybe once a month in kids worship. We do a lot of physical movement. And so we will talk for a bit and then we get up and do something. We'll circle back and talk some more and do something. But what I found in writing the underwater adventures curriculum that we're going to do is I'm doing it in a storytelling mode, because from the education world as a teacher, we did novel studies every year because I taught English Lit. And when I would read The Hobbit to the kids, I would alter my voice based on which character was speaking at the time.
And yet she doesn't like audiobooks.
Yeah. I'm a great column. I'll be honest with you. So
you gonna give it to us now?
No, please no.
Perfect setting.
My precious. Yes. Look at my handsies. Like stuff like that. And so I would be hoarse by the time I went home. But I started doing that in kids ministry too. So when we did the Armor of God, it came with like this story that paralleled with biblical principles of the armor of God. And I would, reflect and change my voice. And these kids were just captivated by it. And they would be like, I missed last week. Oh, Miss Andrea, tell us what happened last week. And I thought, you know what? That was so poignant for them. I thought, I'm going to plug that in to the kids under the word. Because every week we will do a different biblical event that has to do with water. And so we'll do Jesus' baptism, the wedding at Cana, and things like that. And I have written it in story mode to tell the story of it more than just speaking biblical principle to them.
That's good. Do you think that curve flattens out though? You probably, once you get to adulthood, I'm sure the attention is less than it was 20 years ago as far as how long you can keep an adult's attention. We're planning a men's breakfast later this summer, and we always have testimonies with that. And the person that is given his testimony this time, I could listen to him for 3 hours. I really could. But I've told him, you've got to figure out how to distill your life into 10 minutes. And that's so hard because so much of his life has led up to where he is now in his relationship with God. And it's all the steps are important. And trying to help somebody along to figure out how to get that into 10 minutes so that the crowd leaves with it is not easy to do.
It's not. I know when people would ask me to give my testimony, I would look at them and be like, what part?
Yeah.
Because God is, there in all of it, whether it was in my 20s and we were struggling with this, or in my 30s and this was going on, or in my 40s and this, or even in my childhood, where we walked through a lot of things in my childhood. I'm like, I can't give you, my whole life in even 30 minutes. So I'm like, tell me what you want me to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I can pull a piece from my life and share it, because I do believe story is very, very important because it's relatable. You can empathize or you can sympathize with it. And that's how you connect to people through story. We're teaching kids in kids ministry this month about sharing the gospel. And just this past Sunday, we talked about how important their own story is. And I looked at one of the girls and I'm like, you have accepted Christ your Savior. You've been baptized. And she's like, yes. And I'm like, that's your story.
Got a story.
Yeah. Go share your story with your friends and how important it is.
So do you want to tell us about your children's book series and your novel?
So the children's book series actually has to do with a family of 4. And the first book opens up that the dad got a new job and they have to move. And the older sister's excited. The younger sister, who I reflect off me as a child, because we moved a lot when I was a kid, is more me, and how they deal with that and how she's constantly living in her sibling's shadow and things like that. And then throughout the course of the series, it's their adjustment into this new life, new school, new friends, new everything. The young adult one is dystopian. A little bit.
Oh, I love dystopian.
Me too. That's why I wrote it. I mean, like this years ago, in the midst of Hunger Games and Divergent and all those things were going on. And so I have not finished it. I lost it for a long time. Like it just disappeared off my computer. And this is the beautiful thing. So it sat dormant for probably almost 10 years. I come to work at Ridgecrest and I keep getting these messages that my memory is full. I'm like, I don't understand. My memory is full. So I opened up Google Drive. I didn't even know I had a Google Drive account. Okay. And there it was, amongst a whole bunch of other stuff that was like 20 years old. And I told Rachel, I started crying there at my desk. I'm like, I found my book. I'm like, I found it.
It's like finding your own time capsule that you didn't know you buried.
Exactly right.
Well, I think that in itself is a little dystopian, that you didn't even know you had a Google Drive, but all this stuff just pops up on it.
There has to be a big, big hole in the dystopian Christian fiction world
Yes,
that is about to get filled.
I have a lot of questions, but I'm trying to figure out how to steer this the best that I can. So I finished, do y'all like Ted Dekker?
Yes.
I do.
You like Ted Dekker? I didn't know you read a lot of fiction.
I read a lot of Christian fiction, but I mean, I'm familiar with his work. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to read more fiction than nonfiction because of the reasons we've been talking about, and because the amount of podcast and nonfiction that I have taken in over the course of my life, as we have discussed ad nauseum, has greatly contributed to my spiritual frustration. And so I'm trying to just cut it off. And I don't know that reading Ted Dekker is really helping.
I was going to say, if I'm going to read fiction, it's to cleanse the palate, probably. That's not going to do it. There's 2 uses of fiction. There's like not waste of time, but like basically something to like pass the time that's not doom scrolling. So like for that, it would be like let's just read a political thriller that's going to be entertaining, but it's not really going to like cause me to think about anything. And then there's like fiction that makes you think, like C.S. Lewis, Tolkien. Never actually read any Dostoevsky, but I keep telling myself that I'm going to do it eventually. And it's just, I don't know that I should do that to myself.
You shouldn't.
And I probably will. But so I read some Ted Dekker several years ago. I started with the Circle trilogy, and I really enjoyed it because I'm trying to remember how this question came up in my mind, and it's been so long since I read the series that I don't know all the details. But the series dealt with a theological question that I had in my mind, and so recently I picked Ted Dekker back up, and I finished. So he has a novel called Eyes Wide Open that is like, it's one novel, but he released it in 4 installments. And I told Kayla about it, and she said, that doesn't count. Cause I read all 4 this weekend. So I read 4 books this weekend, and she said, that doesn't count. And I said, yes, it does, because they're all 4 separate Kindle books. But anyway, I finished it, and I was just like sitting there, and she was like, what's wrong with you? And I said, I can't stop thinking about, like, I couldn't even put into terms what I was thinking about. It wasn't even necessarily the plot of the story itself. It's just, I know that this book is part of, like, Ted Dekker has this big universe deal. And so they're all connected. And I was just thinking about that. And he's not even like overtly Christian. I mean, some people would probably say that a lot of it is questionably Christian, but I'm trying to figure out, because of all the things we've talked about on the journey, is it questionably Christian because of, well, this is the approved Christian stuff over here, or is he just different? But I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't think this way when I just read, no offense to any of our staff retreat books, but our staff retreat books. And so
they've averaged a 5.5 on Broxton's scale.
I'm just thinking about like, why is the church missing this opportunity here?
Because which goes back to the whole bigger story.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I mean, God chose to communicate the gospel through a story. Like, we are living in a story. And so I don't understand how we as Christians miss that and write things off as, well, fiction's stupid and it's a waste of time.
That's good.
Discuss.
And there's a lot there.
I know that. I just have a lot of different directions and I don't know how to formulate a question.
Well, I think that's not just a fiction discussion. I mean, I think it is a broader discussion of, because we're in ministry now, all of us, is there a tendency when you're in vocational ministry, is there a tendency to wander closer to the middle of the box as far as just the standard operating procedure for how ministry is done, what the discussion centers on? And as such, is it harder for us to think outside of that the longer we are in ministry? Because y'all are fresh in ministry, and we've already discussed about several creative things that to me are nicely outside of the box. And I worry, I don't want to jump in the middle of the box. There's some good stuff in the middle of the box, but there's a lot of great stuff outside of it.
I mean, for me, I'm just got 1 year under my belt here at church. And so I've like poured everything I have into the ministry and, what God is leading me to do and share and mold and shape in the children's ministry. But I definitely have a heart to do things outside of it. I mean, I go teach chapel at Northside still once a month, and I love being able to do that because I get to see everybody and I still get to be connected and a part of it. But I want to see that stretch out even further into the community. And right now I'm like, how can I do that? Where do I begin? Where does that start? And then I was like, it doesn't have to be through Ridgecrest. I can have a ministry outside of Ridgecrest that has those tentacles and outreaches and stuff like that while I'm still representing Christ and representing Ridgecrest in a positive way. Mm-hmm. It's just finding the way to do it.
It is. I think that's really neat because to our pastor's credit, I think few people understand that the way that Pastor Ray does, because the very first thing he wanted to instill in us when he got here 25 plus years ago, God's always trying to take us someplace new. God's always trying to take us someplace new because he knows how paralyzing stopping in your spiritual walk can be. And that's not only true from a personal relationship with Christ standpoint, but it's also true from a church standpoint.
My head's still swimming with questions.
It's okay.
I don't know why should I not read Dostoevsky?
It's a mire. It's a boggy field out there. You get bogged down. Or at least I found that to be true when I read it. I can recommend a lot more positive fiction books to dive into.
That does beg a question. Is that the right phrase? Because I just recently read where begs the question is way different than raises a question. So I don't know.
That raises a question.
It does. It raises a question.
I will say that we oftentimes shut down fiction as not beneficial. Mm-hmm. When I have a specific testimony of a friend. She and I are both avid readers, and I've loved fiction. I was the kid that hid in her room and read, and my dad would get up at 2:00 in the morning and he would catch me with a flashlight under the covers. Like, I was that kid. Like, I would read ad nauseum, loved it. And I loved Christian fiction because my family was very conservative, so I didn't have access to a lot of other things. So I have been in the Christian fiction world for a long time, and I had a friend in college who was the same. Her husband was surrendered into ministry. They were actively serving in a church as a youth pastor and youth pastor's wife, and she was pregnant with her first child. They'd been married a few years, had been baptized, been a believer, and we were just reading through some Christian fiction. And she called me weeping one day, and she said, I was just reading this book and I have no idea why, because it wasn't in this fiction book. But she goes, I realized that my faith is fake. I've never actually given my life to Jesus. I've never had this life change. And she's like, I just asked Jesus into my heart. And now I've got to go to our church and tell them that they have a youth pastor's wife who is just now truly giving her life to Jesus. And she's like, who would have thought a fiction story could do that? But it just, in that storytelling, she realized, not sitting in a sermon, I'm sure other things led up, but it was that moment reading a Christian fiction, just
Do you remember what book it was?
It was, I cannot tell you, I've read thousands of books. So it was a long time ago. It was early 2000s. And it changed her life. And she'll tell you, like, who knew that God was going to use my love of fiction to realize that I hadn't had a true relationship with Jesus in all these years. Wow. So to me, that's powerful. And then Christian fiction can speak some truth into your lives. There's some that I can highly recommend that are delving into the early Christian world, and they're highly researched. It makes it come alive, and you're like not reading a book about the first century church, but you're reading a story about these people who lived it and underwent the persecution, and they had family members thrown to the lions, and you're like, wow, what a powerful testimony. It almost feels like a biography rather than a fiction. So I think there's benefit there. I think you can get bogged down into it and then go the other way where you get spiritually frustrated because you're reading all these different nonfiction texts. I think you can kind of use fiction as an escapism.
Except Broxton doesn't.
Right. But I'm saying there's a ditch on both sides of it. I think it's healthy to throw in some solid fiction in there once in a while.
So in the 90s, I read the whole Left Behind series that was written. And what I found and I love fiction, I love reading stuff, was that it gave me a hunger to get into God's word. Because as I'm reading this, I'm like, I'm going to fact check that.
Yep.
Because I'm a big fact checker when I hear things that are taken at liberty or taking a fictional route of something from the gospel. And so it developed a hunger in me to just read God's word. And I do think Christian fiction can do that for you too. Make you want to see it more.
Broxton probably doesn't need to read Dostoevsky because he'll ponder.
Yeah.
I could probably read it and go, and then move on. And if you've listened to The Journey much or watched it, you can divide the four of us regulars into two camps. Broxton and Chase, their spiritual lives are sort of like a mountain where they know there is a better view higher up the mountain. And so they want to do what they need to do. They want to figure out, how can I get up this mountain a little bit higher for the better view? Auburn and I are like a stream. We put our boat in the stream. It's going downstream. We're enjoying that view. Every once in a while, we'll paddle to course correct. But where do y'all? Do y'all experience spiritual frustration? Where would y'all fall in that? What is your walk like?
Let the record show, Neil. I didn't bring it up.
Two new people to weigh in on it.
All right. I've listened to The Journey a lot more than you have. Do you want to give your thoughts first?
Sorry, these are falling off my head.
Good.
And now I've
twisted.
There you go.
So sorry. So being very active in church, and I was active in church my whole childhood. One thing I've noticed is, as I am now serving in the church and working in the church, I don't get to go listen to Brother Ray's sermons. I don't get to go to my connection group anymore and things like that. And so I immediately began feeling very starved and very dry for it. And so I had to shift the whole way that I read the Bible and study God's word and do. And I'm thankful that I still get to go connect with the Sojourners Women's Group, because that was my class for 10 years. And, every once in a while I'll go in and teach a lesson or go and sit in service and stuff. But it was hard. It shifted everything in the way I had to do everything, the way I was being spiritually fed and connected, because, I have Rosie, she and I are, side by side, hip to hip, every time, but my other audience is children. And so I don't get to have a balanced, relationship with other women, because it's kids, me and Rosie and kids. But I have found that I can connect with other women that serve in kids ministry and things like that, which has been great. But it was a huge adjustment for me to know that, I'm not in worship service anymore. I don't get to hear the choir or hear contemporary worship. And I'm missing that kind of stuff. But so it has altered the way that I have to walk with Christ, or at least alter the way that I spend time with him and how I can be spiritually fed.
I can imagine. Similar?
Back to the spiritually frustrated question, I would say that I'm kind of a middle between Chase and Broxton and you and Auburn. I'm not a river rider where I just occasionally paddle. I feel more like it's like hiking. I guess that's the best thing I can think of. Like sometimes it's level ground and it's not hard and it feels right. And it feels like you're cruising along at a decent clip. And then the incline changes and you feel like you're striving to get to that next level. And there comes exhaustion or frustration or worry or whatever gets in the way of you enjoying the hike, enjoying the views around you. And instead of looking around you, you start looking at your feet. And then that's when the journey isn't a joy anymore. But then usually there's another flat level plane and you'll get to enjoy that for a little while. And then there's a new level. So I feel like it's kind of a both and. Like there are times where spiritual frustration happens. But for me, instead of looking and like getting stagnant, I look at my feet or I look at the path or I look at the problem right in front of me and I forget to pause and to look around and see what God's doing. And I'm too worried about where my feet are and what my road looks like. And so then that leads to frustration because I'm no longer looking at what God's doing. I'm looking about where I'm going and what I should do next. Like, where should I place my next foot? Or where should I pause, or where should I go, or which path to take? And it becomes all about me and it's not about him anymore. I think that's where my spiritual frustration enters in. I wish I was I love boats and I would love to be on a paddle boat just once in a while correcting.
Well, you can go on the men's whitewater rafting trip.
I was going to say, not to say we don't face some rapids every once in a while, Auburn and I, but that's just more closer to the analogy I think that we operate in. But
I think it changes over time too.
And it does.
I can think of years where I was doing the mountain thing, but right now I feel like I'm more in the stream. And right now I just want to listen to him. You know, I'm just like, Lord, I'm just listening. Just, you know, keep sharing with me, keep touching my heart, keep speaking to me, and let me just be still. I guess when I think of the stream, I think of the stillness of my relationship. And right now I just want to be a big sponge and just listen and absorb it all.
That's good.
It's those plateau moments where you can see a different level than what you saw before. I love that. And then you go and you climb to the next one.
And it's hard.
It's sometimes hard, but then it's always worth the climb. Like, I feel like that's the joy of it. I don't think we'll ever, till heaven, reach the summit and see all the big things that God's done and is doing.
I'm reading a book right now that's not a novel because I mean, apparently Ted Decker just kind of shook me a little bit this weekend. So I had to move on to back into my spiritual frustration territory. But it's a book called it's either When God Feels Distant or Seems Distant. And I'm sure Chase and I will bring it up and talk about it at some point because it's very much what the two of us are going through, not what Lance and Auburn are going through. And so we'll see where that leads. But they've got this this kind of argument going that seems like there are seasons of the terms they keep using are consolation and desolation. And so they're using this argument that when you first come to the Lord, he's kind of like, I don't know if replacing is the word they would use, but you have all these strong desires that you had and passions that you had before you came to Christ. And he has to, in a way, kind of satiate those desires with new things from him. And so that's when you feel consolation from the Lord. And so you can't get enough of scripture. You can't get enough of worship. You can't get enough of fellowship with other believers. And that's purposeful. He's using that in the early days of your walk with him to grow your desire for him. But there comes a time, you know, it's different for everybody, but the next step of maturity is a different kind of filling those desires. And a lot of times, this is what they term desolation. A lot of times it looks like feeling like God is absent and has left you, and that you're in a desert. And they're making the point that even the disciples, they were passionately following Jesus, but they really had no idea what they were signing up for, and that he was going to teach them in the ways that he did. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where me and Chase are, because we're both, he's a few years older than me, but we're in somewhat similar stages of life and stages of thinking about all that. We've both grown up in church, as we talked about a few weeks ago on the show. We've both been in ministry now. And so it's like we're in that next phase spiritually. And I think that probably has a lot to do with like our instant gratification thing. If you look in the grand scheme of things, like I was saved when I was 7 years old, and I'll be 30 this year. And so for me, that seems like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not very long at all in terms of walking with the Lord. And so I don't know. I think that's where we are. And it's a interesting thing to bring it back to the fiction thing, is that I feel like God uses, like I've tried to cut things out of my life that I thought were distractions, but then I'm like, he's speaking just as much through those things as he is just scripture alone. And so it's like, how do you know what to cut and what not to cut? And how do you just let the Holy Spirit lead and say, God, I'm going to do these things as long as they're not sinful, and as long as you don't tell me otherwise, because it's something that I enjoy. And you just speak through whatever that is, and just let me be attentive and soak it up, like you said, or not soak it up. And so I guess that's where I was with Ted Decker over the weekend.
It's where you can be with Bucket Golf.
Well, the Ted Decker novels are much cheaper. I paid like $6 for these 4 books.
Really?
So on Kindle, but anyway. Well, do y'all have anything else to add? Would y'all like to talk about your 2 growing ministries as we close out? Lance, unless you have any other
I'm good.
questions. Because I asked y'all what y'all want to talk about last night, and Andrea, you said, well, we both have growing ministries. So.
Yeah, God's been good and really faithful. It's been exciting to see. Rosie and I were just talking yesterday in church that, we had, a little over 30 kids in second service worship, and we're maxed out in seats and tables, and we're trying to reconfigure the room again. And I looked at her and I said, with our missions classes, RAs and GAs ending this week, I said, we'll have all those kids on Wednesday nights, maybe, if they're in the habit of coming on Wednesdays, and you're looking at 60 kids easy. And I thought, what are we going to do? Where are we going to put 60 kids? But that's such a wonderful problem to have. And we know that God will provide, like he'll make a way for it. And so as we plan, I guess I would ask people to continue to pray for the kids ministry, because as the size of the number of the kids grows, so will the need for resources and volunteers. But that's such an exciting, wonderful thing to do. And as long as we remain faithful, God will continue to grow it.
Well, it's just anecdotally, just being there at the Welcome Center and seeing the anticipation on kids as they go toward kids ministry on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night. And then as they come out and what they've experienced, and they're just on cloud 9. And it's just really an awesome thing to see that, because that's so important to let kids know that that you pour something into church, God is going to pour into you from it. And that's a life lesson that hopefully they'll take for their entire life.
Right.
Well, I love what you guys do. It's not just fun. They're not there excited because it's strictly fun things. I think a lot of churches fall into that trap, but they are learning. I am always amazed at what the Ridgecrest kids have hidden in their heart.
They have great knowledge.
The scripture, the stories, the prayers that they pray, and just their thoughtfulness. Like, I love getting to talk with the kids, because you can see that not only are their parents pouring into them, but you guys are too, and challenging them and teaching them that church is more than just where you go to hang out with your friends and have a quick snack and a Bible study.
Right.
Like, that you challenge them to journal as a kid, because that's where we are with women's ministry, is challenging women to dive into the Word of God and go deep and learn how to dive in, and then journal about it, apply it to your life, let it change your life. And so you guys are starting that. What's that going to be in 20
years? Kids
are
such sponges.
Yeah.
We had a little girl, and she was like, I want to pray for my uncle. He doesn't know the Lord. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I'm like, do you want to pray? Do you want me to pray? She's like, I'll pray. And I said, great. So we all bow our heads. And she's like, Lord, I just need you to grab a hold of him. I just need you to pour into him and speak to him, Father, wherever he's at right now. And I mean, I'm like, my eyes are closed and I'm like opening one eye. I'm looking at Rosie like, are you hearing this child pray like an adult? Because number one, she was passionate about it. She knew he needed Jesus, but she has heard others pray over people and things. And she's just absorbed it and thought, I'm going to pray like that. And it was just great to hear.
We're blessed to have so many good prayers, adults in the church. But the most impactful prayer I've ever heard at Ridgecrest, and I don't remember how many years ago this was. I don't remember if it was a prayer summit when we first started doing those, or if there was just another reason that a kid was praying in church. But gave the simplest, most powerful prayer, and it was just about 20 seconds long. But he ended it with, "And Lord, if you ever need me, I'll be right here."
Oh,
and I'm like, obviously that made an impression on me. I remember it years later, and that's so refreshing to see. And we probably don't hear or see that enough in big church.
Yeah.
To see what's going on in the kids ministry.
They have prayer life. They really, really do.
Yeah.
It's really neat. And I get to hear it because, women talk. So in my women's ministry, I get to hear, how amazing it is to come to a church that not only loves them as adults, but pour into their children. Like the whole family feels welcome and they're all excited to be there. Yeah. So it's just a really neat thing to witness and to hear about. And I've mentioned this, not on the podcast, but I've mentioned this to Lance. Like I love in my ministry, bounce over to, we'll go women's ministry first, is I love hearing about the overlap. Like without anything being planned with Lance and I mean, he's using Man Church curriculum and they're studying Acts and I'm using Psalms, which is a curriculum I just put together for our women to study. And I have women who are coming to me and they're like, my husband and I were talking about our studies this week. And did you know that this is overlapped with this? And they were studying in this verse and this is a direct cross reference. And they're like using, and they're so excited. They're like, we just can't quit talking about these things. And she's like, we sit at the dinner table excited about our stories of what we've learned and what we've heard. And I love hearing that. And then if they have children, the kids are hearing about the parents' excitement about what God is doing in their lives. So that is just really neat. And then my senior adults, it's growing. It's so fun to see word of mouth. I feel like that's true for all of our ministries. The growth isn't because we're doing this phenomenal job of like promoting or saying things. I mean, I feel like we do a good job of that, but that's not where the true promotion happens. It happens with people saying, hey, Man Church has really changed my life, or Kingdom Women or children's ministry is really ministering to our family right now. How can we get a part of that? And how can we invite other people and tell them? I think that's the best advertisements we have is just the people of the church excited about what God's doing here.
Right. And I mean, at that point, church is not a box they checked. They're going home and having conversations about it. And that's the whole iron sharpens iron. They're leaning on each other. And as a family unit, that's wonderful.
All right. That was really good.
It's good.
I think y'all, any final thoughts? The last chance. Who knows when you'll be back on the journey again? Right. Because apparently it's really good when we have guests. Yeah. And so we're just going to load up with guests this summer.
I'm going to start listening to the journey. You're just going to tell me where to find it.
Oh, okay. We'll get you all the links.
Thanks.
Thursday, I created one link with all the links.
Very cool.
And so I need to start sharing that and I will share it with you. And then, so here's another question. Will you watch or listen?
I would probably enjoy watching more. That will keep me more engaged than just listening.
So that starts at episode 50, right?
51. I notoriously did not have it ready in time for episode 50, but
I couldn't remember.
We started episode 51 with a 30-day shred. So
not the workout.
I was going to say, was James owning here? Because
we've been talking about having James Only on.
Y'all should. I love that really family.
Good. Yeah, so we need to make that happen.
Love them.
Okay, but here's a question about that. Like James or Chantel?
Both.
Yes. Absolutely.
But I don't know. They would have to be separate episodes. I don't think we could have them competing.
Yeah, they would have so much material we wouldn't know where to go. But yeah, we could do that separate.
All right. Well,
tell them to come in one day and you can just do back-to-back episodes, knock them out.
Well, that's what Neil's been pushing to do is to just do marathon recording sessions. all day. So we'll see. We might have to do that over the summer. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.